Hi, I'm Phil Jump, Chair of Industrial Christian Fellowship, and like many people at the moment, I'm in coronavirus lockdown and having to get used to a very different way of life. And that's made its impact on me. I've been forced to stop doing some things, and I've been forced to do a lot of other things in a very different way. And through that experience, I've also noticed that I've started to ask questions about which bits of my life and which roles that I perform really matter. And I think, like many people, I'm also beginning to realise that this is likely to impact the way I live my life once things return to something resembling normal. Now, for me as a Christian minister, that's included a fair amount of actually reflecting on my own role and purpose. And that isn't just a matter of working out how I do what I've always done, albeit through the wonders of modern technology while I'm here in isolation, but actually beginning to realise that what I am being called to do is different. And yet perhaps it more resembles what I should have been doing all along. I'd summarise many of the changes that we're now experiencing as having to make a shift from organising people to do Christian things to helping people do things in a Christian way. So instead of gathering people for worship, we're having to help people discover God's presence in their immediate surroundings. Instead of preaching to them, I'm having to help them navigate their way through a mass of religious publications and YouTube channels and goodness knows what to learn from God themselves. And I'm having to do this and help them do this in the midst of getting on with their daily lives in the place where they're spending most of their waking hours. And yet, as I think about that, it strikes me too that this is exactly what the vision of ICF has been from its outset. I've recently been working with John Weaver and Dr. Ian Randall to compile a history of ICF to mark our 100th anniversary. And as we look back, we can see that commitment echoed in every era of its life. So when Britain's canals and roads and railways were being built in the 18th and 19th century, the forebears of ICF were finding their ways into the navvy camps and communities, and there they were helping people find God in their everyday life. When the Christian Social Union was formed, later to become the other founding organisation of ICF, academics were being challenged not just to research and gain knowledge, but to think about how as Christians they could use that knowledge and intellect to combat issues of poverty and injustice. And as the First and Second World Wars came to an end, it was ICF, supported by leading archbishops and civic leaders, who brought people together to explore the kind of society that we needed to rebuild. They were asking the questions about the values and the purpose that should lie at that society's heart. And in more recent decades, we've worked to support Christians in every sphere of employment to work out what it means to go about their job as a faithful disciple of Jesus. I believe that we're at a similar crossroads today. We were really already there before this coronavirus lockdown happened because of the impact of Brexit. We were recognising that, again, we were needing to ask questions about the values of the society that we were seeking to build. But now, these latest events have brought a whole new evaluation of the world of work and those roles that really matter. You know, when I was a school governor, the standard mantra of teachers who were frustrated with pupils who wouldn't apply themselves was, if you don't work harder, you're going to end up stacking shelves in Sainsbury's. Well, do you know, in recent days, we've come to realise how important those shelf stackers are, along with the warehouse packers and the delivery drivers and the care workers and the till operators and the food production line operators, not to mention, of course, the vital key workers in our health and emergency services. We've come to recognise that work really matters, and we've also come to recognise the kinds of work that really matter. And as we journey towards whatever world will emerge from this most unprecedented of moments in our history, we need a church that recognises that work matters. And we need a church that helps people go about their daily work and their daily living in a Christian way. You know, one of the formational figures in ICF's history, William Stuudert-Kennedy, once said, if finding God in our churches stops people finding God in our factories, then tear down the churches, for God must hate the sight of them. Now, if you know Stuudert-Kennedy, you'd know that he'd say that kind of thing. But what's interesting is right now, our church buildings are closed, but our factories and our shops are open. And the great halls that Christians, among others, might once have flocked to for our big praise gatherings are now being turned into emergency field hospitals. Today, in our here and now, it is the key places of work that people see as essential. Now, that doesn't mean that our Christian message has no place. That doesn't mean that we as God's people have nothing to say. But if we can't help people make sense of faith in their workplace, then there's nowhere else open where they can. So I would encourage you to engage with our vision. Take a look through our resources. And let's help you work out the kind of church the present circumstances are requiring us to become. And dare I say, that God might be calling us to become for the future.